Through the generous contribution of Dr. Lewis's family, we're very fortunate to be able to share with you these timeless recordings of Dr. M. W. Lewis, a self-realized American yogi. Dr. Lewis was Paramahansa Yogananda's first American disciple and dearest personal friend. The wisdom Dr. Lewis imparts through these teachings will give you a dynamic and practical insight into the ancient science of yoga as taught by Paramahansa Yogananda. This lecture's title is How to Overcome Temptation and was delivered in San Diego, California on April 7th, 1957.
Our subject this morning, how to overcome temptation. How to overcome temptation. Some say temptation has no power unless you recognize it. But this is not so. Temptation is a force. It's a part of the evil force. It has definite power, so do not treat it lightly. Scriptures attest to this very fact, that temptation must not be dealt with lightly. It is a force, a strong force. In the Bible, in Isaiah, 45th chapter, 7th verse, we read, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So we cannot deny that evil, which tempts us, is a force created by God. And so let us not treat it lightly. Also in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th discourse, we read as follows, I am the splendor of splendid things. I am the gambling of the cheat. So you see that God has created evil. It is a definite force. And that's why Jesus said in Matthew, the 6th chapter, lead us not into temptation. He recognized it was a force. And also in Luke, the 22nd chapter, pray that ye enter not into temptation. Pray about it. It is a force, a definite force. We must be on our guard. Therefore, you can see, it is not a sin to be tempted, but it is a sin not to resist it. It is not a sin to be tempted. God has created this force of evil, but it is a sin not to resist it and do your best to offset it. Therefore, the first thing we have to realize in discussing this subject of overcoming temptation is to be thoroughly honest with ourselves. When problems come up, be honest with ourselves and ascertain if we really want to do this thing or that thing. If we really want to follow something in outward consciousness of a worldly nature, which will really not be good for us, or we want to follow the better thing. Be honest with yourselves. That's half the battle. Then do what? Resist it. Resist the temptation which comes to keep you from doing that which you know you should do according to your best judgment and conscience. That's resisting temptation. Now, we may not always succeed in resisting temptation 100%. That's where people make the mistake. They think, well, I didn't succeed. But whatever resistance you offer, whatever resistance you give to, temptation is stored up in your consciousness within. And your consciousness, as the Master has said, is the only reality we have. And that resistance reserve, which you lay up in your consciousness, will influence your thoughts and action at a later time. That's why resistance is so necessary, because it affects your consciousness and lays up within your consciousness a resistance reserve, which will come and help you the next time you're tempted. Do you realize that? So do not think if you fail, you've lost everything. Resist. What of it if you do fail? Everybody fails. But don't stop resisting. That's what gives you strength. That's what gives you power to overcome temptation. And so realize it is not a sin to be tempted, but it is a sin not to resist it. And realize that consciousness, as the Master has said, is a relative thing. Remember the moving picture. You see in the moving picture, you see the sea and you see the sky. What's the difference? The difference is in the rate of vibration, that's all. So consciousness is relative. But as long as we are in this relative state of outward existence, this cosmic dream, we are subject to pain and pleasure, all sorts of opposites, and we are tempted as long as we are in this cosmic dream. But when we realize that this dream is simply a play of light and shadow, just like the motion picture, then we are tempted to get out of the delusion, get out of the cosmic dream into the one reality, be above temptation. So that leads us to the question, if the above is true, if we must resist temptation, why? Why? Well, the answer is simple. If you don't resist, you're going to suffer. And who wants to suffer? Nobody. We want to get rid of suffering permanently. We want to be rid of it. And as long as you stay in the outward consciousness